pray with me? O star of wonder, star of night, star with royal beauty bright, westward leading, still proceeding, guide us to thy perfect light. And may the words of my mouth and the meditations of all of our hearts be acceptable unto you, O God, our rock and our Redeemer. Amen. Happy New Year. Recently, I've been trying to see things anew, again, with a new innocence. I've been imagining seeing the world through the eyes of my sons. And if I'm thinking in the way of a 4-month-old and a 3-year-old, I'm seeing a lot more trucks and trains and construction vehicles, but I'm also seeing things with a new innocence. Looking at the Christmas tree with Simon on his first Christmas morning, he was interested for a moment or two, but as soon as we turned on all of those thousands of sparkling lights, he was utterly mesmerized. And I'm trying to regain my sense of wonder at the world like that little child. I want to look at the world and be mesmerized, rather than feel a sense of depression or desperation. As you all know, Bernard and I were in Newtown at the Sandy Hook Fire Station just hours after the tragedy unfolded. We were there really to be more of a presence to the first responders. And as a woman who has a strong father and a strong husband, I've always struggled with seeing grown men cry. There were so many shocked faces in that building. Teachers and administrators that had yet to leave, firemen, police, first responders, FBI, politicians even. People not wanting to be alone after they witnessed an unspeakable horror, not knowing how to process what had just happened. These people saw things that they can't unsee. And I want to unsee what I myself saw on that day, but I can't. So rather now, I want to try and see things again for the first time. So I'm grateful that we're in the season of Epiphany. For I want to try and see and try and use Jesus' light revealed to me on this Epiphany Sunday to be a guidepost for my 2013. Epiphany means to behold the world or one's life in a new way, with new eyes, like the eyes of a child. It's when something becomes clear to us in a way that we have never seen or noticed before. New light can be shed on an old problem. And rather than focusing on all of the old problems that do need to be addressed, I, for one, am going back to the basics. I want to try and figure out a way to become myself and teach my sons to be beacons of God's holy, exploding, effervescent light. We, all of us, must become the Epiphany. Jesus can be revealed in us. For as we know, God often shows God's self brightest in the darkness of life. Theologian James DeJong once said, "The stars shine in the night sky, and it's only a sign. Like the Magi, we have to choose to journey towards that star or stay stuck wherever we are." For me, I'm choosing to journey towards the star. One of my favorite things to do as a kid, and even now, is to gaze into the dark night sky and look at the stars. And in fact, on this New Year's Eve, my whole family took some time to gaze at the stars. We were amazed at how many we could see in the warm Florida night. My sister commented that one particular star really stood out. And we were all wondering what that star was when my wonderful techie husband whipped out his iPhone 5 and points into the star and said, "Actually, that's a planet. That's Jupiter." He had an application to map the night sky. Can you believe that? And we sat around and wondered at the dark in the night for hours. However, at the time of Christ's birth, there were no iPhone 5s to be found. And as perhaps you already know, the word magi or magi is related to the word magic and magician. The magi were the magicians who understood the stars. They were the resident scientists of the sky, the resident astrologers of the time. People back then had as brilliant minds as we have today, and the night sky was an obvious thing for their brilliant minds to study. There in the desert, night after night, no bright city lights to interrupt. Decade after decade, they studied the sky. These people, in fact, memorized the sky. They were sky scientists, as I said, and their brains knew every nuance and change that occurred above them. And their brilliant minds saw something occurring in the year 7 BC. It's a scientific fact that in 7 BC there was an interplay between two planets, Jupiter and Saturn. The two planets interwove in and out with each other. And this same thing happens every couple of 100 years. And guess what happened this year? The same thing. It's a scientific fact. And it's a historical fact, not a scientific fact, that the planets had meanings. Different stars and different constellations had different meanings to people. Jupiter is associated with the king of the heavens, and what we know as the planet Saturn was thought to be the star and the protector of Israel. And so when these two were interconnected, the sky scientists of that era, the Magi, were asking, what does this mean? Could it mean a king to be the protector of Israel? And what was King Herod's reaction? Exactly what we would expect, knowing what we know about King Herod. For Herod was a violent madman. He killed 3 of his own sons, his wife, and his mother-in-law. You didn't want to cross this empowered madman. And so when he heard of a possible new king being born, it is consistent with his personality to order all of the male children under the age of 2 years to be killed. And the slaughter of the innocents remains one of the most confounding biblical stories. Excuse me. But it shows that horrible tragedies like the one in Newtown have been occurring since the Garden of Eden. We owe it to the lives lost to try and work for real and lasting change. And we owe it to the lives lost to be light for the world. Howard Thurman once wrote, "When the song of the angel is stilled, when the star in the sky is gone, when the king and princes are home, and when the shepherds are back with their flocks, that's when the real work of Christmas begins. To find the lost, to heal the broken, to feed the hungry, to release the prisoner, to rebuild the nations, to bring peace among all people, and to make music in your own heart." And the book of Isaiah helps us to begin to understand that Jesus revealed in us is the true work of Christmas. For this passage from Isaiah, in the 3rd section of the book, in chapter 60, towards the end of the whole story, these people of God, the people of God, had just returned from their prisoner of war camps. The Jews had come back to the Promised Land, back to Jerusalem, back to their old farms and houses after many decades in exile. You can imagine what the people's feelings might have been. Let me tell you, they were afraid, unsure, and maybe even a little depressed. And we all might feel that way in our own lives at times. And into that depressing situation in the aftermath of war, the prophet Isaiah wrote these words, "Those of you who walk in darkness, rise, shine, get up, get going. Your light has already come." God's light is already shining upon you. He said, "Lift up your heads." I love that line. For those of you who have your chins down, lift them up. Those of you who have your eyes closed, open them. Those of you who are feeling desperate, wake up and get up, for your light has already come. There are many who are feeling desperate in the wake of the tragedy at Newtown. In fact, every day there seems to be more and more tragedy in the news. But the same stars and the same planets that I saw in Florida, they are the same ones that were shining over Bethlehem, announcing Christ's birth 2,000 years ago. And the stars and the planets that were shining over Bethlehem are shining over Moscow and Beijing and Bangkok and Paris and London and New York and Nairobi. They shine over capitalists and communists and socialists. They shine over rich people and poor people and everyone in between. And the love of God that was revealed in Jesus is for all people. God's love is not confined to one little group, and it's certainly not confined to just us here at Norfield Church. So we, the church of the totally loving Christ, must not exclude anyone because of race, nationality, sexual orientation, economic class, social strata, political beliefs, or stance on gun control. Jesus' love was revealed for us in the face of a child. What does that mean for us today? Many of us would like God to just simply come in and eliminate the dark and all of the depressing times in life. But God never promised to take away our darkness. God never promised to eliminate our darkness on this side of the grave. What God did promise was to give us a light in the midst of the darkness. And God's light, God's holy light, will help us to live in this dark world. Because we know it's a dark world. The prophet Isaiah said, "Darkness shall cover the earth, and thick darkness shall blanket the earth." Our lives can continue to be overwhelmingly dark. But there is one light that always shines in the darkness. There is one light that the darkness cannot overcome, and that is Jesus Christ. So in the midst of your dark world and in the midst of my dark world, we keep our eyes focused on the eternal light of Jesus. And we hear from the words Isaiah, "Rise, shine, get up, for your light has already come. Get up, go, rise." The light of God has already come into your life. So what else does this Christmas star mean? The star wants you and me to follow, just as the wise men and the Magi did. Humankind has always followed stars to guide them. So let Christ be your guiding light. There are millions of positive lights around us, but there is only one light that can navigate us through life itself, and that is the light of Jesus Christ. And as we try to navigate our ways through life, there is only one true star that can guide us, and that star is Jesus Christ. So never lose sight of that star. You may say to God, "I don't feel like getting up. I don't feel like rising, and I don't feel like going." The Lord then puts his hands under your arms, lifting you up. And as you hear the words from the message in Isaiah, God is saying to you, "Are my arms so short that I cannot help you and lift you up?" God does lift us up and says to us again, "Rise, shine, for your light has already come, and the glory of the Lord is all around you." To all of us this day, and for the rest of our lives, God says, "Rise, shine, your light has come. God's light lives within you. God's light is above you. God's light is guidance. God's light is energy. Get up, get going, for your light has already come." Amen.
Amen.